You're listening to the All Systems Go podcast, the show that teaches you everything you need to know to put your business on autopilot. Learn how to deploy automated marketing and sales systems in your business the right way with your host, the professor of automation himself and founder of Automation Bridge, Chris Davis.
Welcome to the All Systems Go podcast. I'm your host, Chris L. Davis, the founder of Automation Bridge, an online publication for small business marketing automation where we focus on turning digital marketing professionals into automation service providers. And in this episode, I want to take my armor off. Okay, I want to lay the cape down, go from Superman to Clark Kent, maybe even Baby Kent right now. And I want to be honest and transparent with sharing some of the mistakes and missteps along my way of learning how to automate, and some that I'm still making right now. There's often this belief that when you become a master of automation and you've built all these successful, sophisticated systems, that your execution is flawless. And that's just not true. It's not real. And I don't want you to expect that of yourself. Okay, so I'm going to talk about my faux pas, my missteps, my mistakes today. So if you're new to the podcast, make sure you do this. Listen to this episode in its entirety. At the end, I will give you an invitation to leave a 5-star rating and review. If just by hearing this intro, you're like, oh, this is worth it, go ahead. Leave your 5-star rating and review now. And if you are a consistent listener of the podcast and you haven't subscribed, please do so that you do not miss a single episode and you get notified every Thursday when a new episode launches. We are available in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and you can even subscribe on YouTube. Okay, so all of your 5-star ratings and reviews are appreciated in advance. So let's jump into the topic at hand. And let me just say this, we're all flawed. Okay, nobody's perfect out here. Don't believe it. Nothing you buy is going to work the very first time. And, a lot of times in our thinking, we're flawed. Most of the times in our approach, we're flawed, and sometimes in our execution, depending on where you're at, right? When I look at execution is the one area, your thinking, approach, and execution. I think I don't want to isolate any one of them, but all the flaws in all three of those areas is going to come from the nature of things, for one, and two is who you're connected with. Who are you learning from, right? What resources do you have access to? If you find you're failing in those areas, and let me just, right at the top, let me go into this, okay? Your thinking. A lot of times, the flaw in your thinking is your mentality. Whether it's you have some undealt with trauma around money, and you have negative thoughts about money. Maybe you have negative thoughts about marketing. Right? Maybe you're not thinking accurately about the process. You're trying to rush it, or, go into things prematurely, which leads into your approach, right? You're taking an approach of action first, thought later, which is the worst approach, by the way, in the industry of automation. Taking action first, then thinking about it later. Oh, my goodness. Are you impulsive in your approach? Right? And sometimes your execution is tricky because you may be doing all that you know to do and it not work. That doesn't, you could say, well, I'm doing my best. You actually executed to the best of your ability. It's just your ability wasn't enough. Okay. And it's just a fact of life. And something you have to embrace is that you're going, even with all of those areas shored up and buttoned up the most, you're still going to make mistakes. And it's especially true when building automated systems, because this is an area of great opportunity to mess up, right? The area of error is actually greatly increased due to the numerous considerations that go into each step. We talked about it in one of the previous episodes, and I just broke down, all of the decision making, all of the decisions that take place just building a landing page, right? Just doing that, something so singular and simple. Oh, get a page up. And there were like 50 considerations for it. And if you're not aware of them, you're just jumping over them, going from one step to the next, right? And the mistakes get easier, the larger and more sophisticated the system becomes. It's just what it is. The bigger the system, the more sensitive it is to small things. It's interesting because companies at scale are sensitive to small tweaks, right? So when you have a larger company and it's got a mature machine of generating revenue, you're not introducing big changes, right? No skilled professional would do such. It's the tweaks and the optimizations. And what they do is those positive tweaks propagate throughout the system. And as they propagate, they become more profitable. So it's these small levers that you pull that have huge impacts on the outside. And then it's flipped for businesses starting out. When you're starting out, you got big levers. I mean, you're pulling all these big levers and you're getting little output. But over time, there is that transition. OK, and if you have been paying attention to these podcasts and actually thinking deeply about them, putting into practice what you can, you'll start seeing these truths. It starts becoming less informative and more affirmative. Right. Maybe when you started listening to these podcasts, it's just like, oh, wow, I hadn't thought of that. And you still are going to have that. But now after you're thinking through this, you've been exposed to it and you're actually putting it to work. It should be like, yep. Yeah, I knew that. Right. Like, yeah, I agree, Chris. I did that. That happened to me. Yep. I saw that. Right. It should be transitioning from informative to affirmative. OK, that's the process. If you're really putting this teaching to practice and you're listening to practice. And you may have questioned if you really, I lay out parts of my approach and my framework in the podcast. I can't give it to you all because it needs to be in a controlled environment. That's what my program is for, to make sure that I've created an environment for you to truly, deeply understand this stuff. But I do give out a lot, right? I give quite a bit out on the podcast, and maybe you've questioned if you really need to do the stuff that I've mentioned, right? So do you really need to map out your automations before you build them? You may ask that question until you spent hours trying to find that one action within that one automation that's tagging contacts the wrong way and triggering all of these other automations, or giving them access to something that they shouldn't have access to. Right? So when I say map out your automations and you're like, you can skip that step, you're small, so you can skip that step. Because only small people can skip that step, by the way. When you start building out more mature and dynamic systems, you can't skip that step. And those of you know it, right? You may have thought, I know he said document everything, but I don't have time, right? Until you spend hours looking at something you built and can't seem to figure out why you did it. Right? Then, in some strange effort to optimize it and make it better, you don't remember what you did, but you're like, I don't think I need that action anymore. I can make this, I can tidy this up. And it may just be me. I don't know about you, but do you ever review your stuff and look at it and just try to make it look better? I'm always tweaking it and hey, do I really need that if else? Right. So then you start removing stuff like, you know what? I probably didn't realize it, that I didn't need this. And you start removing this, because moving things that you feel aren't necessary, only for its absence to propagate through your system and cause all these errors. Right. Has that ever happened? And when I say I'm saying this because I told you I took the armor off, the cape is down. These are things that I have done. I've literally done that. How dare I look at something that I've built or put into place, don't understand it, but then try to optimize it? Like, you know what? I don't quite remember what I was thinking, but I'm pretty sure I don't need this anymore. Right? I've done all of this. And for some of you right now, you're just like, oh my gosh, I just did that last week. I just did that yesterday. You know, like this is the journey. This is the life. And I continue to make mistakes. Okay. And sometimes it's just me moving too fast. I have to slow myself down. This is a disciplined approach. Okay. Building successful automations requires the utmost discipline, because sometimes you're acting hastily because you're up to a deadline, and other times it's just exciting, right? You just like, I can't wait. I got to get in here and build it. There's so many times I have automations living in my head. I'm just like, man, I got to get home. I got to get home. I got to get home, you know? But I caution myself all the time and just take a step back. As I'm recording this, I'm looking at a sheet right now of a time where I jumped into something that it was really like a quiz functionality, and I hadn't given it enough thought to really acknowledge it as such. And if you've never built a quiz, then you don't know this, but just know there is no way that you can build a quiz. Let me say this. There is no way that I can build a quiz without mapping out the logic on a piece of paper, because most of the time, none of my logic is simple. You know, it's this branching, and I'm not talking about it's this complex branching. It could be 4 questions, but the answers to those questions are so important. And I'm asking them in a particular order, because not just the answer matters, but the order in which they're answered matters, right? What they say and what they're not saying is important to me. So I have all of these in my head, and I'm realizing, oh, wait a minute. I just went in, jumped and built this thing. And as people started to go through, and I'm not even to the part, I have errors in my mind. This wasn't even one of them. But as people start going through it, I'm realizing they're ending up at the wrong destination, and the information that's being captured is not accurate. So I say that to say I'm looking right now at a sheet of paper with the logic mapped out. You know, I'm using color pens and everything just to make it easier visually. And I went to build it, and it was perfect after that. Right. So I'm saying this because I moved too quick on that one. I was excited. I was like, oh my gosh, this thing, I can do this, you know, because the creator has the hardest job, right? To take something from nothing and create. And then the implementer, the improver, the optimizer comes in, and now they have a foundation to work on. It's easy to start to say, okay, let's do this, let's do that. So a lot of times I love being the optimizer more than the creator at times. So for me, that excitement comes, let me hurry up and just get something in place so I can optimize it. So I can, you know, so you do. It's a disciplined approach. You have to take a few steps, several steps back at times. Okay. So let me share some of the mistakes that I actually had in mind. That was a bonus. There's probably going to be more coming out as I record this, but maybe, hopefully this, maybe add some levity to this. Maybe you've been beating yourself up. You're just frustrated. This automation stuff just doesn't work. So maybe you could laugh at my pain, and overall we can all just learn from each other. Right. And let me say this, this is going to be beyond like, oh, I put the wrong link in an email, or your if else branching isn't working. I'm not going to be, not to say that that's not important, but those are kind of like, you're always going to have that. It's always going to be present. These are areas where I could shore up, you know, by slowing down and really just thinking through it more critically. I could have had these areas shored up. All right. So the first is my automated schedule canceller. All right. And what I was trying to do is using Acuity, and this is before Acuity had an app, and ActiveCampaign had a mobile app. So everything was online. And what I was looking for is I had my scheduler open, and I wanted to review their information once they submitted it. And if they were a good fit to keep the appointment, I would keep it. And if not, I needed an easy way to cancel it on the fly, because this is when I was, working and I was on the move. I wasn't always in front of my computer and able to pull up my stuff and just go into my account and say cancel. I was commuting, I was traveling, all of these things, right? And the backstory behind this is I was emulating a process that my mentor had put in place. And this is why you've heard me oftentimes, you talk about the monolithic marketer and how to break free from following the crowd. A lot of times it's not negative, but what I found is that his approach to doing it wasn't going to work for me. Okay. So I tried it. I gave it a good shot. And here's what happened. So I was trying to emulate his where, you schedule, and then on the thank you page, it gives you a notice that says, hey, we're reviewing your information. If all works out, we'll see you on the call. If not, you'll receive a cancellation or something like that. Right. So what happened is I put on my developer hat and realized that I could, in ActiveCampaign, apply a tag to the record and start an automation. And that automation could send a webhook to Acuity and cancel the appointment. So I said, okay, all I need to do is create a form that only I have access to. I'll put in their email address whenever I need to cancel, hit submit, and boom, it's done. So the first time I did that, it canceled all of their appointments. I didn't realize that you needed to specify an appointment ID. So I have multiple appointments people can schedule. So if somebody has scheduled one appointment, like maybe a podcast interview, and then they had another one that was like just us catching up or whatever the case may be, one event canceled all events. So that's not ideal, right? So I went back and implemented it in a much better way, but it wasn't ideal because I had to. The process was I look at the information. If it's not good, I have to copy the email address, then go into the form, type the URL of the form, and paste it in there. And I thought it would work, but it just become cumbersome. It became cumbersome, right? So after all of that, now imagine this. This was me reading through Acuity's API documentation to know how to configure the webhook and blah, blah, blah. After I did all this, I sat back and said, is it really worth all this? What's the real issue? Well, guess what? The real issue was not, I was applying automation to the wrong area. The issue wasn't that I needed to cancel. The solution, I should say, wasn't I needed to cancel. The solution was I needed to qualify. Like problem solved if I did a better job on the front end qualifying the leads before they scheduled. So now, of course, I've got a very mature and robust qualification system in place. And guess what? I haven't had to cancel many appointments. I had to a few days, maybe a few weeks ago, maybe a month or so ago. I had to, and that's just because there was a influx of leads that exposed a branch or in a logic branch that I just missed. I was just like, oh, so I say that to say, as your net widens and the amount of people that you're putting your business in front of, it's also going to expose, something may work at level 1, but it may not work at level 2. So when we talk about automation gone wrong, some of this stuff is just you have to know what growth in automation looks like, right? So a level 1 system may be just fine. You're like, yes, great. And then all of a sudden you're exposed to more leads. Maybe you were getting 10,000 leads a month. Now you're getting 100,000 leads per month. And as they're going in, the diversity is increased. So people have different needs. And remember, the one thing that grows up and matures in automation is contact throughput. So not just the quantity, but also the makeup, the diversity of that contact throughput will expose it. So anyways, I've since then even improved it, since it was working initially, but because leveled up, now I needed to make it even tighter, which I have to say I'm extremely proud of it. Okay, but that what I did not get that right. the first time. And many people were like, Chris, why does this keep, every time I schedule it cancels? Right. I mean, this thing was just booting everybody out before they could even start. It was canceling because I had this rogue tag, and to this day, it happened a while ago, so I don't remember everything. But this was a time where even in ActiveCampaign, you could type a tag, and if you hit delete too many times, it would remove all of the tags, just like a Word, like a Word document. I don't know if it does that now because I stopped adding tags on the contact record for that reason. But it was too sensitive. Adding that cancel tag was too sensitive. I'm submitting their form, and that form adds a tag and starts an automation. And just having that tag in the system, I think I was getting more fancy with other automations. Like, okay, if they do this, add the tag, because this tag was powerful. It triggered a webhook and canceled the appointment. And no, it was all bad. It was all bad. It just damaged the customer experience. So that was me trying to do too much. That was really me trying to do too much. Okay. And then another time was the automated downsell. This was interesting because I don't do downsells a lot. I really don't. Not in the way that traditional marketers do it, where it's like, okay, you don't like this. How about this? Oh, one time, do this. Nothing against it. Don't get me wrong. Nothing against it. Just my model doesn't rely on it. Okay. I do have downsells, and there's a particular way that I do them. So this was me saying, you know what? I'm going to automate this downsell. And what happened is I came into a interesting situation, a race condition. So oftentimes there are actions that need to happen in sequence. And a race condition is when the time between those actions is minimized to almost immediate. And sometimes the second action can happen before the first. Okay, so when there's not enough buffer between those two events, you get into a race condition, which can be very detrimental in systems building. In engineering, we're always looking for these race conditions and making sure that there is no possibility that the second event can take place before the first has completed in its totality. So I had that in mind, and that came back to haunt me a bit. But ideally, when I thought about it, it made perfect sense. After they get access to purchase something, and that access expires, it made sense to send them a downsell email, right? And the problem is this: the race condition that I came into was that the downsell email should never come before their time had expired. That's one. And then two is, if they're still under consideration or they're still thinking about it, they should never see it. So I guess that's similar to the first. But once they buy it, they should never see that email. Right? They should never get the downsell once they bought the main thing. Because the downsell could be another product, or it could be like a different payment configuration, right? Like, hey, you couldn't pay all of it at once. How about this payment plan, right? I mean, it's strategy. You test it out. Some people just put the payment plan right on the checkout page, or you can offer it as a downsell. Like, there's many ways to be strategic, everybody. Right. So that was it. I had this condition where the race condition would be if the downsell happened before they were done with the consideration period. Right. That I had to be mindful of. And then the next one was they shouldn't get it once they purchase. So what happened is I had my goal configured wrong. The goal in the automation was supposed to turn off all communication about the product and disable them from getting the downsell. And I didn't have it configured right. So I realized that somebody had just purchased after they, had some consideration. And right after they purchased, the downsell email went out. And I said, oh my gosh. Right. It's like going to the store, buying a computer for full price, and then you leave, and then the cashier tells the person right behind you, oh, we've got other payment options for this. And you're turning around like, wait a minute. Had I known that, you mean or them saying, hey, we have a computer that's equal to that. It gives you the same output for half the price. Now buyer's remorse is at an all-time high. I just paid full price for something. Wait a minute. I didn't even need all this. I can get the same results from a cheaper product. So that's what happened. All because I didn't configure the goal. So you go back in and you say, I'm gonna reconfigure this goal the right way. And guess what? Still didn't work all the time. Why? Well, I hadn't taken into account that people use multiple email addresses. Oftentimes, the email address that they opt into for your free stuff is different than the one they use when they buy. So with that being said, I had to go back in and put an indefinite wait before that downsell email went out. And I configured it for like a wait until state. So now, again, since I have the app on my phone and I can access these things, now it's just like I can apply a tag that says send downsell, and then it'll satisfy that wait until condition, and then send them the downsell email. And if I never apply the tag, they never get it. Right. But those are some considerations I just missed. And it's not that I should have known better. It's just a matter of, man, you still feel like, oh my gosh, how did I do that? And I'm always concerned with the customer journey, because any experience in that journey that's undesirable can really throw off all of your hard work. Right. So there is no way for me to know if you use a different email address except manual checking. There's no way around it. Okay. So I had to reconfigure my automation to help me jump in and help it. Right now, if I had a whole lot of contact throughput through this specific automation, I would have done it differently. But this was one where it's just like, these are, hand selected folks. So it's not like I got 50 to 100 of them at a time, and I'm always applying this downsell tag. I have done something like that at Lead Pages, when you've got, thousands and thousands of people a day buying, that downsell really, it was a one-time offer. That's what it was. The one-time offer really had to be, automated, because it just couldn't, nobody could jump in. Even the size of our support team, you couldn't burden them with, jumping in and, hey, now give them the tag so they can get it, All right. And another mistake is conditional content. This continues. Listen, I know a lot of you struggle with building if else branches. I talked about the ABCs of automation building. I gave you 3 tips. One was never use negative logic in an if else that produces an automatic yes no branch, because no to no means yes. Condition. So I understand it. The logic piece really breaks a lot of people's brains. It gets mine at times. But remember, or is additive and is subtractive. If you're ever confused, if you're using or, that means more. Okay. Just remember it like that. Or means more. So when you say they have this tag or they have that tag, just know that it's going to be more people that fit that than if you use this tag and this tag. So and is more limited and more focused, or is more. So hopefully that helps you. That's what I use often when I'm like, do I want to do or and? Remember, or is more, so it's going to widen it up. All right. So when we use conditional content, or is actually the functionality that we're looking for. Okay. Because or is like a switch statement, case statement. I'm speaking in really technical terms. It's like a switch. There we go. It's like a light switch. It's either on or off. It's not on and off. Okay. So not using this approach to conditional content will mess you up, because the using and allows people to fit multiple criteria and see multiple messaging. And this happened to me both in email and in my academy online. Is I would erroneously use an and function thinking I'm filtering it down. Like if you have this tag and this tag, you see this. But what about the people who have that tag and meet another criteria, right? In conditional content. And it's just like, oh my gosh. So what would happen is I would have multiple messages or I would have blank messages because they didn't meet any of the criteria. It was just like, Chris, how do you keep doing this? Right. So now I just, how I do conditional content is totally. In fact, that could be an episode in itself. But how I handle conditional content is if I'm using a tag, to show the content, it's something optional. It is not the main content area. Because otherwise, if it's the main content area, I have to use a condition that is either true or false. So I could set true on one, false on the next. Or if I have 3 truths and then one like default for if you didn't have any of that true. Right? This is sounding complex. just as I'm speaking about it. So let me put it like this. Let's say you had a product and the email was going out and you wanted to show a show a product for women and show a product for men. That's an or, right? You're either going to show them the men or you're going to show them the women based on the information that you captured. Or we could say, maybe even more clear is a child or an adult, right? Like that's got a little more space between it, right? So they're either a child, you want to show them toys, or you want to show them adult toys. Or whoa. You want to show them, how about child clothes and adult clothes? All right. Stay away from the toys in this one. Okay. So you're either a child or an adult. You can't be both. I know there's some childish adults. I get it. I know. It's like even when I'm saying this, I'm like, what about that? Have you considered this, Chris? Have you you guys get it, right? So you're either a child or an adult. So you would only have one of those tags, right? But when it starts to get blurry and you have products where maybe somebody bought a product in let's say they bought a PlayStation and they bought an Xbox. And then you have in your email a condition that says if they have a PlayStation tag, show them this. Then if they have an Xbox tag, show them this. And in your mind, you want to just show them one. But since they did both, they go through and they see all of the messaging. Right? Or if they haven't bought either one, they see nothing. That's what I'm talking about. So I always default to or functionality, right? And I'm not talking about the or operator. I'm talking about the conditions that can only be true one way. So again, you're either an adult or you're a child. However you're putting that data in the CRM is up to you or wherever you're using the logic. But I have always struggle with that. And it's just so recently where I have a framework where it's probably been a couple years now since I've really had any issues. And what this goes back to is how you're storing your data and how you're creating your segments. Okay. So one of the things, let me tell you this, with all of this being said, one of the things that I've used to help me make sure that I'm not continually making these mistakes is sending notifications. I implemented notifications throughout the journey. So as people go through my automations, I'm sending myself notifications. And they're descriptive. I think I've talked about this before, but they're really descriptive. Hey, so-and-so just did this. What they're about to do, if they decide to do this, they'll get an email in 2 days. Otherwise, we'll do this. Go into the automation if you don't want this to happen. I'll do that. It will be that explicit. Okay. And what it does is it lets me know what's happening so that I can say, oh, wait a minute, system, something's wrong. Because just think, otherwise you would not know when something's wrong until after it's wrong. I can't tell you how many times this has saved me. It prompts me to jump into the system and rectify something before it becomes an issue. And this is the prime example of how you can set it and not forget it. But you still don't have to be tied to monitoring it so much. This is the close that you can get to set it and forget it early in the automation building process, because you put these notifications up. Now it's up to you. Again, we're talking about automation go wrong. I used to have notifications all over the place. And guess what? My email inbox was just like filled. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I either need to be better, or I need to specify only the most critical and important items to be notified on, because I don't need to know everything. Right. And these are just a few areas that came to mind just to show you that it doesn't just get easier. Building automated systems is always hard. Always. It's just too many variables. But being disciplined with your approach and following a framework will make the process less error prone and more rewarding. I am on the record for saying this, and it's a gift that I would give freely if I could, and I do for those who choose to allow me to. But there's no greater feeling than a system that's operating 100% accurately and producing results. It just breeds a different level of confidence. When you know your automated onboarding is taking care of all your new customers, you're not worrying about retention. When you know that you've got a qualifying system within your marketing strategy that's working and spitting out the best leads to your sales page or to your sales rep, whatever the case is, you're more confident in generating leads. It's no greater feeling than having a system in place. And it's extremely frustrating when it's broken. Okay. I have some extremely mature and sophisticated automations that took time, but lots of errors, monitoring, tweaking, rebuilding. But man, are they powerful now. Oh my goodness, extremely powerful. It's some of my best work. It took years, so don't beat yourself up. Okay. Understand it's always going to be part of the process. The bigger question is, what are you doing to prevent yourself from making the same mistakes again? You shouldn't be a repeat offender. If you're a repeat offender, there's something going on here. Okay. Maybe though you aspire to be great at building automations and automating businesses, maybe it's not your strong suit, right? Okay. What are you doing? Are you slowing down, getting a second set of eyes, committing to do things in the right sequence, regardless of your excitement or speed that you feel like you need to move at? An expert in automation isn't perfect. They're disciplined. They leverage victories and proven processes of the past to eliminate introducing new uncontrolled variables in the present. That's what this is. We are trying to eliminate the areas of error as much as possible and leverage what worked so that we can build upon it. Okay. So who needed to hear this episode, everybody? You listening, though it resonated with you, who do you need to share this with? Okay. Who do you need them to understand? Look, stick with it. It's okay. Look at what he did the same thing. Remember when they got that empty email? Well, look, he sent an empty email before. Look, his goal didn't work. He forgot to configure his goal. Right? We're all in this together. So who needs to hear this? This is the time where I would like to invite you to leave a 5-star rating and review and make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast. I want to add something, though. I've been getting so many people telling me, the All Systems Go podcast, its reach is endless. I've had people share it at universities. I've had people share it with their team internally to help get them trained up. The bounds in which I'm learning that this podcast is being used, I'm just extremely thankful for. So do me a favor. Everybody can do this. Please share this episode on social media. LinkedIn preferred, That's where people are looking for this type of information to put in place. But do me a favor, share it. I want to thank you all who are sharing and tagging me in it. But share this podcast. Share it on LinkedIn. If you're not connected with the Automation Bridge LinkedIn page, just go to linkedin.com/Automation Bridge, I believe. But the link, listen, the show notes on the website, the link is there. We post the episode every week. Just make sure you share it. Let somebody know about it. Okay. At Automation Bridge, we're dedicated to training digital marketing professionals to become automation service providers. These are people that you can entrust with delivering the highest level of automation in your business. Okay. Small businesses need this. And what we're doing is we're launching our community. We're opening the doors. And if you like to join a private community of automation specialists who are sharing latest tools and strategies, automation building tips, what worked, what didn't, why, and more, right? I'd like to extend an opportunity for you to join the community and keep the conversation going, right? Keep the momentum flowing. You need to be around. Some things can only be learned in environments, right? So we've created an environment of just ongoing automation learning, sharing, encouraging, right? So if you're looking to speed up your learning curve and rub shoulders with other people that will make you better quicker, have you ever heard the term iron sharpens iron? Smart people make smart people smarter. This is the community for you. It's actually the only place I am daily, engaging, sharing what I'm doing, tools that I'm using, discussing episodes of the podcast, right? If you've ever listened to the podcast and wanted to talk more about it, we do that in the community, right? Automation building tips, challenges. Hey, if you had to create an automation to do this, how would you build it? Right? It's all there. It's there to make learning challenging, of course, but fun. It's gotta be. There's too many areas to mess up, as you see, and it's too easy to get down on yourself. You need to be around people who are moving in the same mode as you and beyond you. Right? So if you'd like to join, I'd love to have you. Visit automationbridge.com/join. And if you want to make that commitment and say, look, I'm in this is my community. This is the community I've been looking for and been waiting on. There's also incentives there for people who are part of the community to be first in line for the next cohort for our automation service provider program. Okay, so if you would like to make sure that you get first access, the community is the place to go. All right, automationbridge.com/join. All the show notes and podcasts are accessible at automationbridge.com/podcast. You can subscribe there and listen to all the other episodes at your leisure. So until next time, I see you online. Automate responsibly, my friends.